Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to my kitchen. Thanks for tuning in for Watch Me Wednesday. Tonight we're going to showcase the rock crock. And in the rock crock, by popular vote, we are going to cook no stir risotto. And for this evening, I've decided not to include any animal protein in this recipe. This will be a vegetarian recipe and easily converted to vegan. So I have gotten some feedback from some of my followers that I am not promoting enough whole food plant-based cooking, and so this is a happy medium, so this will satisfy meat eaters and vegetarians alike. So let's get started. I'm going to shuffle the angle of the camera a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing on my stove, and on my stove I have the rock crock, so be right back. All right, so there we have a pretty good view of what's going on. I've got the rock crock and my bamboo spoon. I'm gonna turn the oven on medium to medium high. And in there, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of butter. And again, so this is a vegetarian recipe. We are using vegetarian butter, earth balance to be exact, but feel free to use regular cow butter or non-dairy butter, whatever you choose. It cooks the same. So 1 for now, 1 for later. Also into the rock crock, we're going to add a cup of onions. And these were diced ahead of time to make the video flow better. And then I've also got 3 cloves of garlic that I've minced. And we're just going to use the other end of the spoon to kind of get those out and flick them in the pot. So once this comes to temperature and the butter starts to melt a little bit, we're going to add the risotto rice. And so I want to talk a little bit about risotto rice because it's different from regular long grain rice like what we are normally used to cooking with. Short grain rice will make a creamier rice in the long run. You can substitute for long grain rice, but it won't have the same consistency. Okay, so my pan's starting to heat up and the butter is starting to melt. And while this continues to heat up and go, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the benefits of the rock crock. So I'm going to come back up here to my face. And this rock crock is really versatile. This is a brand new item in my kitchen. As many of you know, this is my second time around as consultant with Pampered Chef. I still have a ton of merchandise and product from when I did this before, but since that time, they've come out with a lot of really interesting and phenomenal products, and the rock crock is one of them. And the reason I say this is because this pan will go everywhere. It can go in your microwave, it can go on your stovetop, it can go on your grill, it can go in your oven, it can go in your broiler, and best of all, it can go in your dishwasher. And so it's really very versatile. It comes with a lid. There are also some accessories that you can buy to go with the rock crock, and the one that I just ordered for myself that hasn't arrived yet is the rock crock crock pot slow cooker attachment. And so the rock crock will actually fit down into this attachment and become a slow cooker with that device. So very multifunctional tool. It is a pricier product, but again, it's going to last you forever, and the versatility is unbelievable. So I'm just going to turn the heat up a little bit because it's taken a little bit longer. I forgot, it does take a little bit of time to heat up the stone, so you don't want to rush it. We just want to have a nice, even cooking temperature. And so we're going to let everything just kind of simmer down here and be happy. And as soon as it gets going nice and fast, I'm going to change the video back. So I'm going to talk through this a little bit because I am going to have to pause, but after this kind of comes to temperature, we're going to stir this together with the rice and kind of brown the rice up a little bit, and that'll add some nutty flavor and some really good base for the outcome of this product. And so we're just waiting on that butter right now and everything's stirring up really happy. I'm going to pause for the butter and I'll be right back. Hi, we're back. we have the pan up to full heat now and everything is sizzling away and being happy. So I'm going to focus the camera down here so you can see what's going on, and I'll come back up in just a little bit. All right, so we have the onions and the garlic sauteing nicely in the pan. And to that, we're going to add 1 cup of the risotto rice. And then we're going to stir this all together for about 3 minutes until it gets a nice golden color. And as I said a minute ago, this is really going to help develop the flavor of the overall dish. So this isn't a step that you want to rush. What's everybody cooking in your house tonight? I would love to hear your comments. And if there's other recipes that you want to see or products that you want to have demonstrated, please leave a comment in this video below and I will get back to you and be happy to try to look at or create or talk about any product or recipe that you're interested in. Okay, so the rice is starting to soak up all the liquid that's in the pan. The onions are starting to get translucent. It's been cooking for about 1 minute. So we're going to give it a little more time because we really want that flavor and the color to come through. And we want to try to just keep stirring it gently, flipping it around so it all cooks evenly and browns up nicely. I am starting to notice that there's a little bit of pull, not a stick, but just some resistance on the bottom of the pan. That's actually a good thing. That means that the onion is starting to cook and the sugars are starting to caramelize. And so very soon we should be able to start noticing some color on the outside of the rice. And as soon as we have that color, then we can move on to the next step. So I just saw a couple of really nice looking brown onions. And everything else is starting to get super happy in there. All right, so now I'm going to grab a pot holder and try to lift this up so you can see. I need smaller pot holders. Okay, so we have browning in the middle, around, kind of going everywhere, but it's really most noticeable in the center. We want to keep going. It's been 2 minutes now, and we're going to keep going for 1 more. Uh-oh, we just had a onion jumper. Okay, so this looks pretty good. It's been almost 3 minutes. We've got just a couple more seconds to go. It's important to keep stirring so that nothing sticks. It also helps to promote even browning amongst all the little kernels, or not kernels, grains of rice and all the onions that are in there and the garlic. We don't want the garlic to burn. So we just definitely want to keep stirring. Okay, now we have some pretty tan color going on there, and the risotto is starting to pop. That means it's time to add the water, or in this case, we're going to add vegetable broth, which is going to give extra flavor. So we want to turn off the stove, and then to that we want to add 3.5 cups of vegetable stock. Now, if you're using a protein of choice, you could use chicken to match your protein or beef broth to match your protein again, but this is vegetarian, so we are using vegetable stock. I'm going to stir one last time before I put in the stock to make sure nothing is adhering, because this is going to deglaze the pan, and all those little happy brown bits at the bottom are going to now absorb with the broth into the rice. So I removed 1/2 cup of the broth before I poured this out, so the measurement would be correct, because there's 4 cups in a box and we only need 3.5, so I took out 1/2 cup. Okay, so now we're just going to pour this straight in here and stir it around to make sure everything is covered. And you'll notice, like right away, the onions will start floating to the top, and you can see some really dark bits that are coming to the top. That's happy. We want those in there. Okay, we're going to put this lid on here. Oh, you know what? We need a little bit of seasoning. So before we put it in the microwave, can you believe this goes in the microwave? I didn't tell you that yet. That's a surprise. But we need about a half a teaspoon of pepper, which I'm going to guess, this is really chunky pepper, so it's hard to measure that way. I'm going to do it in my hand. That looks like about a half a teaspoon, give or take. We like things spicy here, so a little extra pepper never hurt. We're going to stir this up. Okay. So one more note, just because I wasn't thinking about when I talked about it earlier, but if you wanted to make this whole food plant-based, you would need to remove the oil altogether. And the way to brown the onion and the garlic and the rice without any butter at all is to use vegetable stock. So the same process would apply. You would just need to add vegetable stock to prevent everything from sticking, just like a teaspoon at a time, until you have the achieved results. And since there's an extra half cup of broth left over from the box, you could plan on using that to get your onions and everything going. And so now everything is ready. We're going to put the lid on there, and we're going to stick this in the microwave for 15 to 17 minutes. So I'm just going to open this up and pop this right in, straight from burner to microwave, and we're going to set it for, we're going to try 16, and here we go. Thank you for holding on. I'll be back as soon as the microwave's finished. Okay, we're back. The microwave just went off. It's been cooking for 16 minutes, and we're going to see what this looks like. So here we go. Make sure you use pot holders. It's going to be exceptionally hot. Oh, that was kind of loud. Okay, so far so good. Now we're going to take the lid off. I'm going to tip this down so you can see. All right, there we go. There's a lot of steam, but it looks really good. There's not a lot of standing liquid, which is what we wanted, because actually if you do have standing liquid, you can put it back in for another minute or two until it's at an appropriate level. I'm going to twist this a little bit just to see if there's any that runs to the side, and I can see a tiny amount that will like swish back and forth, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's standing. It's just really moist. Okay, so this is how we're going to finish this. We're going to add a lot of good stuff to this and let it sit for 5 minutes. So let's talk a minute about your choices of things that you can put in there. This could be anything that you like to add to your rice. And so this time we just happen to have spinach and sun-dried tomatoes, but again, you could use a protein choice in there if you wanted to. You could add other alternatives. You could add peas and ham. You could do asparagus and some cheese. Like, there are multiple ways that you could change this up to suit your family, but the basic principle behind the rice in the microwave and the cooking for 15 minutes, that's really fast, and it would be universal no matter what you chose to put on top. And so we're going to finish this now. I've got a half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I've got 1 tablespoon of butter, and again, if you are doing this whole food plant-based, omit this completely. I want the flavor today, so I'm choosing that. And the recipe calls for a half of a jar of sun-dried tomatoes cut into little bits. And so since I'm choosing to omit any animal protein, I'm going to add extra sun-dried tomatoes and extra spinach. So this is actually the whole jar of the sun-dried tomatoes cut up going into my recipe. But again, you can do this like you want. Okay, and then the next thing we need to add is 2 cups of spinach. And so I buy these little handy packs because they're already ready to eat. So you just pop open the lid and dump. And the recipe calls for 2 cups, which is about half of this package. But again, we're making vegetarian, so I want more. And we're just going to add the whole container in here. And don't worry, because this lettuce or spinach is going to wilt significantly. And it will all fit in here. So if you want to just mash it down, we might not be able to get it all in here right away, but we'll get it in there. So we're going to stir this together and try to work the spinach down in there. and stir up the rice and the tomatoes and the cheese. And as you start stirring, you might lose a few spinach leaves like I just did. But ones in the pot will start to get smaller because they're going to start to wilt from the heat. And it will get easier to stir. And then you can add more or less if you don't want this much spinach. It's really your taste preference. Okay, so that's mixed in pretty good. I'm actually not going to add any more because I think that looks like a sufficient amount for me. I'm going to make sure that butter gets stirred in all the way because that's going to help create a little bit of the creaminess with the rice. It's also going to help incorporate the cheese into the base of the risotto. And so just make sure it gets all covered. All right, so that looks pretty darn amazing. It smells really good. And that was a very simple dinner in 15 minutes actually. And with prep time, I would say you've got about 20 to 25, but no more than that. So a 30-minute weeknight meal for sure. So I'm going to put the lid on this, and it has to sit for 5 minutes, but as soon as your time has elapsed, it's ready to eat. So I'm going to pull this right back up here. Hello again. And thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to have you in my kitchen, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Watch Me Wednesday. Good night.